You may remember 2 years ago, we had Charles Rosenay on to talk about his fascination with all things related to the Fab Four, the Beatles. He has written books, led tours of Liverpool, and hosts Beatlemania conventions. But there's a spookier side of Charles that we feel will fit in with tonight's show. Charles, come on in.
Ooh, here I am.
Yeah, you're back. Yes. Well, thank you, Charles, so much for returning to Amber Live.
on completely different topics. No rock and roll, no Beatles. We're in the Halloween season.
Yes, we are. So tell me about what Halloween means to you.
It's funny because I was brought up pretty religious, but we always went trick or treating. My parents always took me, and I think they loved it as much as I did. And growing up, I just remember I didn't want to grow up to the point where I couldn't go trick or treating. As a teen, I was going, and then I would try to find parents who had kids who I could accompany so I could keep trick or treating. And I guess that manifested itself into me eventually running major haunted attractions, haunted houses, where instead of getting the treats, I was dishing out the tricks and scaring people.
So what are you doing this Halloween season?
Where do I start? Well, I have a new book out. So just about every night that I'm not doing fun podcasts and interviews, I'm out in libraries doing a program on True Ghost Stories of Connecticut, which is my book. And I'm out there talking to the people about my history, how I grew up loving monsters and beginning to join the world of the paranormal. I'm a paranormal investigator now. I go out on events and investigations, and I produce paranormal conventions. But what am I doing? I am prepping for every weekend in October something called the Haunted Trolley, which we inaugurated last year on an actual trolley line, an antique trolley where we go on board. Last year, it was more of a seance, a supernatural theatrical. Oh, look at that conductor there. He looks ominous. He looks like he hasn't slept in years. And what we're doing this year is we're doing a murder mystery on board the trolley. So people go into the box office, they have an orientation, someone gets killed, they learn how he got killed, maybe get a few clues, and then they jump on the trolley, and it's a half-hour trolley ride forward and back where the clues are given, and then they have to figure out who the killer is, and there's actors who act it out. It's going to be really, really special. So I'm excited about being creative. The creative juices are flowing, and it ain't the same old stuff.
Right. So tell me more about that book, your new book. How many stories do you have in there?
It's about 30 stories, 30 chapters. The criteria for the book was because even though I was born in the Bronx, I lived in Connecticut most of my life. So the stories had to do with Connecticut. They either had to be based around Connecticut or have taken place in Connecticut. And they had to be true. That was really important because I didn't want someone embellishing a ghost story. I didn't want them fumfering it up, adding material, flourishing it, making it more scary. I wanted the true story of what happened because the truth is more astonishing than anything that someone could make up. And we have just stories that are mind-blowing. The firsthand paranormal accounts by individuals who experienced the occurrences is very different than any other books that have been out there, because most ghost books, whether it's Haunted Kentucky or Ghost Stories of Arizona, will tell you the place. They'll usually give you the history and maybe, why it's haunted. I wanted to know what happened when someone went to a given place. What was their wow experience? And of the 30 or so chapters in the book, many of them are written by paranormal people who've seen it all, done it all, experienced it all, but I wanted that one unbelievable moment. And I did 3 stories myself. And it's funny because one of them happened in college. I'm not going to give it away. But when it happened, I wrote it off as, okay, I can't explain the pink lady of New Haven. I can't explain why she comes on her porch at the certain time and she's dressed in pink and she has no face and black, and it just very, very crazy to the point there. I'd forgotten about it. I don't know if I repressed the memory, but I did go there with a friend. He taught me about it. He gave me the history, and I brought my parents the next day, and the same thing happened. I went a third day with friends, and I didn't believe it. I had to look around to see if someone was projecting. And in those days, no one did anything like that. But yeah, the same paranormal experience 3 nights in a row. And I'd forgotten about it till it was time to write the book. And then all of a sudden, wait a second, I had this unbelievable occurrence, this supernatural, paranormal ghost encounter. And I was able to build the book around what I remembered. And I actually called the friend who took me on it. He lived in California. We hadn't spoken in probably 3 decades. And I read him my story, and he says, wow, that's exactly how he remembered it happening. So very excited about the book. It's available obviously on Amazon. And when I do conventions and when I do libraries, it's such a cool pleasure to sign. Like I used to go to all these events and I would have people sign for me. Now I'm on the other side signing for them. It's such a great feeling.
Tell me about the big event coming up in November.
So aside from the Haunted Trolley, which is every weekend in October and takes place in Connecticut, I've got, which I think witches and non-witches alike are going to love, in Salem, Massachusetts. I've got the Salem Paranormal and Horror Convention taking place at Salem State University on the weekend of November 11th and 12th. I think it might be Veterans Day weekend, Saturday and Sunday, with amazing guests, with vendors, with special attractions, with speakers. If you want to know anything about the paranormal, if you want to see some really cool horror guests, if you want to have your fortune told, you want to go to a tarot reader, all of the above at one place. Tickets are cheap, $19, and admission includes every aspect of the event. So it's very exciting. It's the second year we're doing it. We did it last year. People loved it. It was, beyond me that there wasn't this type of convention on this level. I consider it, when I do shows, world class, really big, big events. And I was surprised that Salem had always had smaller, really intimate family type of these paranormal conventions that were just tiny. And this was the next step. And I'd been doing it in Connecticut for a while. I thought, well, what's the next best place to do it? Well, probably Amityville, but I haven't done that yet. So we brought it to Salem, and it's been a fun ride. And it's next month, November 11th and 12th.
Your headliner.
The headliner from the horror side is a gal named Tara Buckman, who was in the movies Silent Night, Deadly Night. She was in Extra. She was in the TV shows Buck Rogers and Freddie Nightmare. She's probably best known as one of the 2 gals, along with Adrienne Barbeau, in the movie The Cannonball Run. If you look at the credits in there, you'll see Tara Buckman. She's my horror guest. But my para guest, when we think of magic, we think of Houdini, right? When we think of the paranormal nowadays with all the Conjuring movies, and we might think of the Warrens. When we think of mentalism, mind reading, we think of the amazing Kreskin. Oh no, there he is. He's trying to read my mind, but it's a blank. And he's cracking up. He probably knows we're talking about him now. He's probably predicted the interview. But not only did he write the foreword to my book, True Ghost Stories of Connecticut, he tells the most amazing incident that happened to him that was one of those unexplained occurrences that just when you read it, it's like, oh my God, it's amazing. He's alive. And he's alive, and he's funny, and he signs autographs for folks, and he takes pictures with them, and he's got books to sell, and he's our other main guest at the Paracon. And if you look on the website, salemparacon.org, it's a laundry list of really great guests who you would know if you're into the paranormal, and these type of people who've been on different haunted shows and have been at different conventions, and they're all going to talk on stage. They're all going to meet people. They're all going to share their experiences. And it's probably the largest guest list I've ever had at one of these conventions. So along with Tara Buckman, along with Amazing Kreskin, there's all these other cool guests. And I'm not going to mention one because I'll leave off another, and I don't want anyone to be offended. But if you go to the website, you'll see all the different people. Yeah, the website is www.salemparacon.org.
Now, how did you hook up with the amazing Kreskin?
That's funny because I've always been a fan. I mean, I remember him from Johnny Carson. I remember
in the 70s, 50 years ago.
Merv Griffin, Mike Douglas. He was the go-to. If people wanted to have their mind read but also have a laugh, Kreskin was great. And there was a game that came out, ESP, Milton Bradley board game. So in his time, he was a in-demand guest, and he would play around the world. He'd probably do 300 gigs a year. And his shtick, you're gonna love this, is what he got paid for the night was by check. It was put in an envelope, and it was hidden in the room where he was going to perform. And at the end of the night, he would go and he would find that check. And if he didn't find the check, he wouldn't get paid. Would you believe that he always got paid and always found the check? No matter if the people hid it in the rafters and basements, if someone had it on them, no matter what, Kreskin to this day finds that check. How did I get him? So I had booked him for a few events overseas, and he came, and he had to do an hour show. He wound up doing 2 hours. The first hour, he talked about all his television appearances and all his great memories, and with presidents and with Johnny Carson and all that. And then, in a subtle way, he works into his, I don't want to call them tricks, but for Halloween, trick or treat, his shtick, his routine, and it's just pow, 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 and one after another, and someone in the crowd whose name is Mark and has just graduated. Well, how do you know this? And he's just zipping off, and when he gets on the run and he's in his zone, it's like the mouth drops, and he's like 20 years old again, running through the crowd and reading people's minds. It's amazing, and that's why he's the amazing Kreskin.
Well, what's the most amazing thing you've witnessed from him?
The most amazing thing I've witnessed from him has been scenarios where people have come up and they just sat next to him, and he told them things that recently happened. And this is not once. I've seen it numerous times. But people usually ask me, what's my most paranormal experience? What's my most paranormal encounter? And I'm not someone who can walk into a haunted house and see something or hear something or feel something. I don't even feel temperature drops. It's a special gift that people have, the sixth sense, the third eye, whatever it is, who are clairvoyant, who are mediums. I'm not that, but I do have a different talent, and that's I'm able to capture amazing stuff on camera, on cell phones, on film. And, I've been to places where the psychic I'm with, I'm one half of a team called the shaman and the showman. I'm the showman, and let the other person, know what they're doing. And they'll go, take pictures. There's an empty door there. Just keep taking pictures. And sure enough, we were in an old opera house. And in this opera house, it had been abandoned. No one had been in there years. And there was an upper level. There was a balcony, and it was condemned, so we couldn't go up there. And there was a door in the background, and the light was shining through because we were there during the day before it got dark at night. And I took about 50, 60 photos. I don't know how many. And all the photos were blank except for this one photo. If you can see, there's one shrouded figure in black, a shadow figure. I know, right? And in one photo of all those, this appeared. That's why I had to put it on the cover of my book. But that's the type of things that you just don't expect. And when I go on paranormal investigations or people come to the conventions, I always say, I'm not an expert. I started out as the skeptic. I was the non-believer who this was proven to. It's time and time again. I can't deny it because I'm at so many occurrences and so many events where more and more of these things happen. So what do I say? I say, take tons of pictures. If you're clairvoyant, if you have a sixth sense, if you're a medium, you're going to sense those things. But if you're going and you're not that person who has that gift, you still have other gifts. You'll be able to take photos and something will show somehow and eventually in the photos you take. And without fail, that's happened. I don't know if I answered the Kreskin question,
I
but
think so.
but it
Pretty close.
transitioned into that.
What would your ideal Halloween experience be?
My ideal Halloween experience is no doubt, and I did it for 12 years in a row. And this year, I'm celebrating my 25th anniversary of bringing fans, tourists, people who love Dracula, people who love vampires on a Dracula tour to Transylvania. That is the ultimate. The 12 years that I spent going to Romania and visiting Dracula's castle, Vlad's fortress. It's half the lore, the fantasy, the Dracula tale, and we follow in the footsteps of Bram Stoker's Dracula. The other half is history. It's the dark history of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler. And when you combine the two, it's the ultimate tour. And 25 years, people have been going to Bucharest and Sighisoara and Brasov and all these places in Romania that are one of the scariest places in the world, but fun. We combine the fun, the entertainment, the information, and it's in such a package that people come back. When we go to a restaurant, it could be the greatest restaurant in the world, once in a while, something's cold. It's not always a 10. I got to tell you, people come back from this Dracula tour, and it's always a 10. They always have the greatest time. They're doing a vampire vacation with people who love the same things that they love. And I think that's been a big part of the success of a lot of things that I do, whether it's the book or the Halloween Haunted Trolley or the conventions or this Dracula tour to Transylvania. It's stuff that I loved, and it's stuff that I knew others would love, and it worked out great because I try to give what I want in that. What book would I want to read? What convention guest would I want to meet? And, what's the ultimate tour? What's a better thing to do than be in Transylvania on Halloween? That's the ultimate.
And I know that our Russell has been on that trip, and he talks about it a lot. So I know you can't have higher praise than having Russell talk about your tour.
And that's how we became, such friends and colleagues for how many years now, meeting on the Dracula tour, staying friends, and exchanging professional stuff and friendship stuff. That's just one case. There's hundreds where people go on the tour and they exchange Halloween cards every year, or or Christmas, they're like, hey, when are we going again? To the point that people were saying, Charles, we love the Dracula tour. What else can we do that's of the same, pardon the pun, of the same vein? And I would start to say, I don't know, until we did, first it was like kind of Dracula part 2. We went to England and did all the stuff that was connected with Bram Stoker and Dracula. But we went to Whitby, which is the most Gothic place in the world. We went to Cambridge. We went to the Borley Rectory, all the most haunted locations in England. And then we went to all the normal places, which were haunted too. The Tower, Big Ben, Westminster, they all have their ghost stories, and the Jack the Ripper tour. Well, people went on that. They've been on the Dracula tour, the ghost tour. Charles, what else can we do? You ready for this? We did Ireland, Scotland, Romania, of course, Hungary, Prague, East Germany, Israel, Cuba, all those places I packaged ghost tours to. And the people who had such a great time on the Dracula tour were then going to all these different tours with me. It sort of took a back, kind of a break to it when COVID hit, but I'm going to pick it up again. I got to find some new places to hit. We even did a New Orleans ghost tour weekend, which was phenomenal. I had never been there before and had such a great time.
Charles, thank you so much for coming back to Amber Live. Fascinating stories, fascinating events, and we can't wait to hear what's next on your agenda. So thank you very much, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes.